They say you never forget the moment you realize your family sees you as disposable. For me, that moment happened on Christmas Eve, surrounded by twinkling lights, sugar cookies, and the kind of cheer that usually masks the cracks in a family. My name's Greg, I'm 39, and until that night, I thought I understood the limits of how far my parents would go to play favorites. I didn't. I've got two kids, Emma, 11, and Lucas, 9. They're smart, kind, the type of kids who write thank you notes and still believe in magic. I'm not saying they're perfect, but they're good. My wife, Melissa, and I have done everything we could to give them a life filled with stability, love, and the kind of holiday traditions I didn't grow up with. I thought I'd left the toxicity behind, carved out something healthier. Turns out, the past has a way of finding its way back in. We live about 2 hours away from my parents. Every year, despite the strained relationship, we'd make the drive to attend the big family Christmas Eve party. My mom would insist we all wear red. Dad would pour spiked eggnog like it was holy water, and the living room would fill with my siblings, their spouses, and the grandkids. My older brother, Ryan, would always arrive late, grandiose, usually with his son Carter in tow and some excuse about a last-minute work thing that somehow required a fresh haircut and designer jacket. Ryan's always been the golden child. He could forget birthdays, skip out on family events, and he'd still be greeted like a war hero. I was the one who helped repaint my parents' kitchen last summer, the one who took off work to drive Mom to her surgery when Ryan was too busy. No one remembered that. But Ryan could post a photo of his latte art and Mom would comment, "So proud of my boy." It used to hurt. Now, I just let it pass. I'd found peace by lowering my expectations. This year, though, this year was different. We got there a little early. Emma helped arrange cookies on the tray while Lucas tried to sneak one when he thought no one was looking. Melissa poured cocoa for the kids and smiled her way through Mom's comments about how they're so well-behaved, for now. I should have known something was off when I saw the pile of gifts under the tree. They were stacked high, shiny bows, glittery paper, big ones, small ones, tags all handwritten. But when I looked closer, I noticed something strange. None of them had Emma or Lucas's names. Maybe they were in the other room, I told myself. Maybe Mom was doing that thing where she hides the gifts for suspense. That's a thing she used to do, right? Then Ryan arrived, late as usual. Carter, now 13 and growing into a smirky teenager, swaggered in behind him like he owned the place. Ryan greeted the room like a politician, hugging Mom, fist-bumping Dad, ignoring me entirely. I watched Carter walk straight to the tree and say, "Whoa, that's all for us. All for the grandkids who made us proud this year," Dad said with a wink. I froze. The grandkids who made us proud. My stomach tightened, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Melissa squeezed my hand. She'd heard it too. Mom called everyone into the living room, practically bouncing with excitement. "We wanted to do something special this year," she beamed. "To honor the grandkids who've really shined. Top of their class, helpful around the house, really making us proud." I glanced down at Emma and Lucas. Emma's smile faded. Lucas shifted uncomfortably. Ryan stood behind them like a proud stage dad, while Carter puffed up his chest. Mom handed out the first gift. To Carter, from Grandma and Grandpa. Carter tore it open, an iPad. I blinked. The next one was a pair of expensive sneakers. Then a gaming headset. Then a drone. Each gift was for Carter. Different tags, different wrapping, all addressed to him. Lucas leaned toward me. "Are ours coming later?" I couldn't answer. Then came the kicker. Carter held up the drone and laughed. "Guess you didn't deserve one," he said, looking straight at Emma and Lucas. My jaw clenched. I looked to Mom, to Dad, waiting for some kind of correction, some acknowledgement. But Mom just chuckled and said, "Oh, he's just teasing." Emma looked like she was trying not to cry. Lucas stared at the floor. Melissa's face was pale. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. And me? I didn't cause a scene. I didn't yell or flip the table, though every part of me burned with the urge to. Instead, I took a deep breath, stood up slowly, and said, "Come on, guys. We're heading home." Mom blinked. "Oh, don't be silly. Dinner's in an hour." "We're not hungry," I said, my voice calm but cold. "Come on, get your coats." Emma didn't say a word. Lucas followed quietly, drone noises still buzzing in the background. As we left, Ryan muttered, "Drama queen." And that was it. We drove home in silence. Lucas fell asleep in the back. Emma sat beside him, her head leaning against the window, tears glistening on her cheeks. Melissa stared out the front window, her hands in her lap, the tension humming between us. I didn't speak. I was too busy replaying the scene, each moment cutting deeper than the last. The gifts, the laugh, the way my parents smiled through it all, and the look in my daughter's eyes when she realized she didn't matter, not to them. That night, after tucking the kids in and watching Emma clutch the small stuffed bear she used to sleep with years ago, I picked up my phone. I stared at the message I was about to send. Not dramatic, not angry, just final. Don't ever invite us again. We're not your punchline. I hit send, and the fallout began the next morning. The text came back as read. No response. No apology. Nothing. I watched the screen for a few minutes, as if my parents might suddenly realize what they'd done and call. But the only notification I got that morning was from our local pharmacy, reminding me to pick up Emma's allergy meds. Melissa came into the kitchen holding 2 mugs of coffee. She handed me one wordlessly and sat across from me. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded slowly, but I wasn't. Something inside me had cracked open. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. Quietly, deeply angry in a way I hadn't been in years. And beneath that anger was shame. Not for what I did, but for how long I tolerated it. See, that Christmas wasn't the first time my parents had made my kids feel invisible. It wasn't the first time they'd overlooked Melissa or talked about Ryan like he was the second coming of Steve Jobs. But it was the first time I saw the look on my daughter's face and realized that she understood. That she felt the difference now. That she'd started to believe it. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on our own holiday. We played board games, baked cookies, opened the gifts we'd bought each other, and lit the fireplace. But something had shifted in the atmosphere, like a window had been cracked open in a room we thought was sealed. We were trying to move on, but the cold still crept in. New Year's came and went quietly. Then, a week into January, my phone buzzed. It was a group chat my mom had created years ago, just called Family. It mostly stayed quiet, except for the occasional happy birthday or blurry photo of my dad's barbecue attempts. But this time, Mom, hi everyone. Just wanted to start planning Carter's big birthday weekend. He'll be 14 this year, can you believe it? We're thinking ski lodge getaway. Cabins are about $300 a night, but we can split. Who's in? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Melissa was putting away groceries when she saw my face. What's wrong? I turned the screen toward her. She read it, blinked, then laughed. It was a bitter, sharp sound. They're unbelievable. I didn't reply in the group chat. I didn't say a word. But a few minutes later, Ryan responded. Ryan, sounds amazing, Mom. Count me and Carter in. Greg can probably cover our cabin too. He still owes me for the laptop I gave him in high school. That part wasn't even true. He'd given me an old broken Dell in senior year because he was getting a brand new MacBook, and even then, he made me borrow it like he was doing me a favor. Still, no one corrected him. Not Mom. Not Dad. Not my sister Katie, who chimed in right after. Katie, haha yes. Carter's birthday is basically a holiday. Let's make it big. I didn't respond. I left the group chat that afternoon. A few hours later, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted, Mom, can't believe you left the family chat. That's immature, Greg. I typed and deleted at least 4 responses before I settled on one word. Me, noted. Her reply was immediate. Mom, what's your problem lately? This is about the Christmas thing, isn't it? You always overreact. I didn't respond again. I was done explaining things to people who refused to listen. But I didn't realize how deep the favoritism went until a week later when Emma came home from school holding a folder of class assignments. She was excited, smiling, finally getting her energy back. Guess what? She said, holding out the folder. I got picked for the school STEM fair. I grinned. That's awesome, Em. What are you going to build? I want to do a solar-powered oven, she said. My teacher said it was a smart idea. Melissa and I hyped her up all evening. We ordered some materials online, printed out diagrams, even started drawing up presentation boards. That weekend, I posted a photo of her sketching ideas on the dining table. Just a quiet dad moment, nothing showy. The caption said, "Proud of my little engineer." A day later, my sister Katie posted a picture of Carter holding a basketball. Katie's caption, "My nephew equals next NBA MVP. Sorry not sorry." Then Mom commented under her post, "Genius boy. We're so proud of you, Carter." Under mine, silence. Melissa noticed it first. They didn't even like the post. I shrugged. It's fine. But it wasn't. Because 2 days later, Emma came to me looking confused. Grandma posted a picture of Carter on Facebook and said he was the smartest grandkid. I froze. When did she post that? This morning, Emma said quietly. He won something at school. A spelling thing. She wasn't crying, but her face had that hollow look I'd seen at Christmas. That quiet, defeated confusion kids have when something's too big to understand. I pulled her close. Hey, you're amazing, okay? And we're proud of you. Always. She nodded into my chest, but I could feel her body tense. The next day, I called my mom. She answered with that tone she always used when she thought I had something to apologize for. Well, look who finally decided to call. Did you really post that Carter is your smartest grandkid? I asked. My voice was calm, but I wasn't. Oh, come on, Greg. It's just a figure of speech. You're really taking things too personally these days. You know Emma saw that, right? She's a child. She'll get over it. That was the moment something inside me shifted. No, I said quietly. She shouldn't have to get over it. There was a pause. Greg, you're blowing this way out of proportion. You always have to be the victim. No, I've just stopped pretending it doesn't hurt. Another pause. Then she said something that I'd carry with me for the rest of the year. Well, maybe if you raised your kids to stand out more, they'd get the attention you want so badly. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just hung up. Melissa was in the doorway. She'd heard the whole thing. She walked over, sat beside me, and whispered, "We're done with them, right?" I nodded. But of course, it wasn't over. 2 weeks later, in February, I got a letter in the mail from my parents. Not a card, not an apology, a letter. It was written in my dad's handwriting, neat and cold. Greg, we're disappointed in how you've handled things lately. Cutting ties over perceived slights is childish. We hope you'll reconsider your attitude, and remember that family means putting pride aside. At the bottom, my mom had scribbled, "Tell Emma and Lucas we love them, even if they don't always earn it." I didn't show the letter to the kids. I didn't want them to see that poison in writing. But I did show it to Melissa. She read it once, then again, then put it down and said nothing for a long time. That night, she said, "You know what the worst part is?" "What?" "They think they're the victims." I laughed bitterly. They always have. But even then, I thought we'd hit the bottom. I thought that letter was the worst it would get. I didn't know yet what Ryan had been up to behind the scenes. I didn't know what my parents were planning for Easter. I didn't know how far they were willing to go to pretend they'd done nothing wrong, and how deep they'd dig that hole before trying to drag me down into it. Because the betrayal that broke everything, it hadn't happened yet, but it was coming. And when it did, there'd be no going back. The fallout from that letter hung over our house like thick fog. For weeks, everything I did, every dish I washed, every meeting I sat through at work, every bedtime story I read, had a faint background noise of that line Mom had scribbled at the bottom of the page. Even if they don't always earn it. Emma hadn't seen it, but she felt it. I could see it in the way she hesitated before showing us her schoolwork now. The way Lucas looked at her before asking for help with homework, like he was worried his big sister might snap. She never did. But the lightness in her step was dimmer, like someone had taken her pride and slipped it under a microscope, examining it with disapproval. And me? I was drowning in shame and frustration. Not because I felt I was wrong, but because I had let it get this far. Because I had let my kids love people who couldn't love them back the way they deserved. By the middle of February, Melissa and I sat down one night after the kids were in bed, the TV humming quietly, with some cooking competition neither of us were watching. She reached over and muted it. "I know you're spiraling," she said gently, "but you've got to pull yourself out of this. You did the right thing walking away." I nodded, slowly. I feel like I let them steal something from me. From the kids. They didn't steal it. They tried. But you stopped it in time. You protected them. It didn't feel like it. But that conversation sparked something. Not a burst of motivation, not some grand phoenix rising from the ashes moment. Just a tiny click in my brain. A quiet decision to stop waiting for my family to validate me. If they weren't going to be the village behind my kids, then I'd build one myself. From scratch. So I started small. I volunteered to chaperone Emma's STEM club one Friday after school. It was awkward at first. I was the only dad there, surrounded by enthusiastic moms and a slightly frazzled science teacher who looked grateful just to have another adult around. Emma beamed when she saw me in the hallway. "You came," she whispered, half embarrassed, half thrilled. I stayed in the corner mostly, helping kids tape down poster boards or test circuits that kept shorting out. But I saw the way Emma stood a little taller that day. The way she raised her hand more. How she explained her solar oven idea to two of the younger kids who were struggling with theirs. When we got in the car afterward, she said, "It was cool that you were there." It hit me harder than I expected. Later that week, Lucas came home talking about a soccer skills workshop he wanted to join. It was early Saturday mornings, which usually meant cartoons and pancakes, but I signed us both up. I hadn't kicked a soccer ball in years, but Lucas didn't care. He just wanted to do something with me. And slowly, life started to shift. I joined a local dads group, not the kind that meets to drink beer and complain, but one focused on community volunteering and mutual support. We built toy kits for kids in hospitals, ran cleanup drives at local parks, even hosted a Dad and Me event at the library where I watched Lucas read the BFG out loud to 3 other kids like a tiny motivational speaker. Meanwhile, I started leaning harder into work. I was a mid-level project manager at a logistics software firm, and while I'd always been good at it, I never pushed for more. I'd spent too many years trying to keep my head down, chasing approval from the wrong places. Now, with nothing to lose, I stepped up. I volunteered to lead a tricky cross-department initiative that had been stalled for months. I stayed late, learned the parts of the system I'd always avoided, took ownership when things broke. My boss took notice. At the next all-hands meeting, he called me out by name. "Greg's been quietly keeping this whole operation afloat," he said. "If you've benefited from faster rollouts this quarter, thank him." The Slack messages started rolling in. Not just praise, but opportunities. Someone in another department looped me in on a product pilot. Another offered to recommend me for a leadership fellowship. I wasn't used to it, but I didn't push it away. At home, Melissa was thriving too. She'd picked up some freelance consulting work, using her marketing background to help local businesses with branding and outreach. She'd started doing Zoom calls in the guest bedroom, her voice full of clarity and confidence. "You're different lately," she told me one evening. "It's like you're finally letting go of the weight." And I was. Slowly. Because here's the thing I didn't expect about cutting off my parents and siblings. It hurt. Of course it did. But it also made space. Space to breathe. To think. To build. But that doesn't mean the past stayed quiet. In early March, Katie, my sister, sent me an Instagram message. Not a call. Not even a text. Just a DM, with a screenshot of a photo Melissa had posted of Emma's finished solar oven project. Emma was standing next to it, grinning, sunlight bouncing off the aluminum panels. The caption said, "My little innovator. First place in the district showcase." Katie's message underneath the screenshot read, "So, we're just pretending none of this drama happened now." I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, another message. "Carter wanted to congratulate Emma. He's matured, you know." I still didn't respond. Because I knew what this was. Not a truce. A test. An invitation to come crawling back so they could pretend it had all been a misunderstanding. I deleted the message. A week later, Ryan called me. I almost didn't pick up. But curiosity got the better of me. "Hey bro," he said, like nothing had happened. "Long time." I waited. "So listen, Mom and Dad are planning a family Easter brunch," he said. "They were wondering if you guys might want to come by. Clear the air, you know? Start fresh." "Did they tell you to call me?" No, he lied. I thought it was time. What exactly would I be clearing the air about?" He paused. "I mean, come on, man. You got real sensitive over some gift mix-up. Carter's a kid, he jokes around. And Mom and Dad. Look, they love your kids, you know that. They just show it different." I let the silence hang. Then I said, "Do you even remember what Mom wrote in that letter?" He laughed. "Letters? Who reads letters anymore?" I hung up, but the call rattled me. Because it wasn't just about me. Easter was coming, and Emma and Lucas had asked if we'd be doing anything with the big family this year. They didn't miss the drama, but they missed the idea of belonging. And I wanted to give them that. Not through forced holidays or fake apologies, but by creating something better. So that week, Melissa and I decided to host our own Easter brunch. We invited 3 of Emma's STEM friends and their families. Lucas brought 2 soccer buddies. Melissa reached out to a co-worker who was new in town with twin girls. We bought folding tables, string lights, painted eggs, baked way too much food. I even borrowed a bunny costume from the community center and walked around the backyard like an idiot for 2 hours handing out treats. And you know what? It was the best holiday we'd had in years. There was laughter, warmth, no forced smiles or passive-aggressive comments. Just real joy. At one point, Emma ran up to me, face flushed, and said, "Dad, this is the best Easter ever." And that's when I knew we hadn't just left something behind. We were building something new. Of course, the past wasn't done with us yet. Because 2 days after that brunch, I got a certified letter in the mail from a law office. And when I opened it, the headline made my blood run cold. It was a notice of revocation of financial agreement. And at the bottom, in my father's signature, were 5 words that would spark the final war. Reconsider your attitude. Or else. At first, I didn't fully understand what I was looking at. I sat at the kitchen table, certified letter in one hand, coffee going cold in the other. Melissa stood behind me, reading over my shoulder in silence. The letterhead was from a mid-sized legal firm 2 towns over, one I vaguely recognized from a billboard along the freeway. Termination of informal family agreement, effective immediately. The language was stiff, cold, almost laughable in its attempt to sound professional. It laid out, in far too many words, that any and all future support agreements, informal or otherwise, between myself and my parents were now considered null and void. According to the letter, Gregory M. has made repeated decisions that violate the expectations of mutual respect and contribution. It closed with, should you choose to re-engage in a productive and respectful manner, financial considerations may be renegotiated in good faith. Melissa blinked. What financial agreement? That was the question, wasn't it? There had never been a signed document. No handshake deal. No verbal contract. But years ago, when we were still barely making ends meet, I'd helped my parents out of a jam. A big one. Back in 2016, my dad's construction supply company had fallen behind on taxes. Something about a misfiled return and penalties that ballooned fast. He was facing over $40,000 in back taxes and late fees. He called me in a panic. At the time, Melissa and I had just sold our first little house in the suburbs and moved closer to the city. We'd made a modest profit, stashed most of it into savings. But when Dad called, frantic and embarrassed, I didn't hesitate. I wrote a check for $18,000 to cover the first IRS deadline, then co-signed a short-term loan in his name to help them restructure the rest. I never asked for it back. He promised, of course, "I'll make it right, son," but I wasn't expecting anything. That's just what you did for family, I thought back then. That's what I did. And over time, they began to treat that gesture as something they had done for me. I'd hear it in little comments. "Well, if we hadn't helped you get into that neighborhood," or "You forget we've always supported you when we could." They rewrote the story, and I let them. Until now. Because now, they were weaponizing it. Now they were claiming there had been a financial agreement in place that I had violated with my attitude. Melissa read the letter again, then set it down carefully like it might explode. "They're preparing for something," she said. "Something bigger." I nodded. My heart was pounding, but my brain was clear. For the first time in this entire nightmare, I saw it all for what it really was. This wasn't about hurt feelings anymore. This was calculated. Ryan had probably helped write it, or at least pushed for it. He always saw himself as the business-minded one in the family, despite coasting on Dad's money for most of his adult life. If they were formalizing things now, putting words on paper, setting up legal positioning, it meant they weren't just cutting me off. They were planning to erase me entirely. That night, I went into our storage room and dug out a box I hadn't touched in years. Old bank statements, email printouts, and a manila folder labeled Dad IRS Loan 2016. I had kept it out of habit, not paranoia. But now, flipping through the paperwork, I felt something spark. There it was, the signed promissory note from the credit union. My name, co-signed. The payment history, a wire transfer receipt. And most importantly, an email from my dad with the subject line. Need help, just until we rebuild. In the body, he wrote, "Greg, I don't know what I'd do without you. I'll make this right. Once we finish the new contract in July, we'll square up. I promise." I stared at that line for a long time. Because in their world, that promise had disappeared. But now I had a paper trail. Over the next week, I made quiet moves. First, I reached out to a lawyer, Jillian, someone I'd worked with years ago during a dispute over a contractor. She wasn't flashy, but she was sharp and methodical. I sent her scanned copies of the letter, The email, the loan documents. She called me the next morning. "This isn't a financial termination," she said. "It's a setup." "What do you mean?" "They're trying to preempt any legal claims you might make. By framing this as you violating their expectations, they're hoping to make any countersuit look like petty retaliation." "Do I have a case?" "You have a very strong case," she said, "especially if they ever took funds or services without documented repayment. And if this goes to court, that email alone could wreck them." I felt a calm spread through me. Not joy, not revenge, just clarity. For years, I'd lived under the illusion that family drama was supposed to stay inside the house, that raising your voice or pushing back made you the problem. But now I saw it for what it really was. They'd used guilt like currency, love like a loan with interest, and my silence as permission. And they were about to find out I wasn't quiet anymore. Melissa and I started planning, not in a vengeful way, but with purpose. We talked about how to protect the kids, our assets, our time. We moved some savings into a new account, transferred the house deed into both of our names equally. Previously, it had been just mine, for loan purposes. We also sat down with Emma and Lucas. We didn't share everything, just the truth in a way they could understand. "Grandma and Grandpa are upset with Dad," I said, "and they've decided not to talk to us right now." Emma frowned. "Because we didn't come to Easter?" "No, sweetie," Melissa said. "Because we stopped letting them treat us unfairly." Lucas asked, "Are we still allowed to miss them?" That one hit hard. I nodded. "Of course. But just because someone's family doesn't mean they're always safe to be around. And it's okay to feel sad about that." The kids took it better than we expected. Honestly, better than I had at their age. And part of me felt pride that we were breaking the cycle now, before it hardened into something they carried into their own families someday. Meanwhile, I began documenting everything. I downloaded old texts, screenshotted Facebook comments, saved voicemails from my dad, little offhand remarks like, "Glad you're the reliable son," or "I knew I could count on you to clean up Ryan's mess." I pulled old emails from 2019 when I'd helped them refinance their car loan, another financial favor they'd conveniently forgotten. Jillian helped me draft a cease and desist notice to the law firm. Nothing aggressive, just a formal record that I disputed their claims and expected all future communication to be directed through legal channels. The letter was delivered by courier. And that's when things shifted again. Because 2 days after they received it, Melissa's sister, Janine, called her out of the blue. Apparently, my parents had started talking, quietly, behind the scenes, to extended family, to neighbors, to friends. And they weren't just rewriting history. They were painting me as unstable. "He's unraveling," Mom had said, apparently. "Ever since we stopped enabling him, he's been lashing out." "She always coddled him," Dad said on another call. "Now he's acting like we owe him the world." Melissa got texts from 2 mutual friends, people we used to see at church, asking if we were okay. "They're starting the smear campaign," she said. But what they didn't realize was, they weren't dealing with the same son they used to guilt and to silence. They were dealing with a father, a husband, a man who finally saw through the game and had the receipts to prove it. And then the opportunity came. Not from them, from Ryan. Because arrogance has a funny way of opening doors when you least expect it. It was April. I was scrolling LinkedIn during a work break when I saw it. Ryan had tagged himself in a post from a mid-size investment group. "Proud to announce our latest partner collaboration with McTavish Build Group. Excited to spearhead the expansion into the residential solar market." McTavish Build Group. That name stopped me cold. Because McTavish was the company my dad had always wanted a contract with back in 2016. He'd bid on one of their projects and lost, said it nearly tanked his cash flow for the year. And now, here was Ryan, announcing a partnership under his name, tied to solar builds. Emma's science project flashed in my head. I clicked through. The partnership was brand new. The ink wasn't even dry. And then I saw it. One of the promotional graphics on McTavish's site, a rendering of a smart solar cabin concept with the pitch, "Powered by design inspired by real-world STEM innovators." At the bottom, a diagram, a nearly identical version of Emma's solar oven project. Not hers, obviously. Tweaked, polished, professionally drawn. But the mechanism, the angle of the reflectors, the heat absorption material, they matched her notes. Exactly. I sat there in stunned silence. Then I started connecting the dots. Weeks earlier, Melissa had posted Emma's project photos publicly. We hadn't thought anything of it. But someone had seen it. And someone had used it. Ryan had stolen my daughter's work, branded it as his own, tied it to a business deal. And worse, he was now about to profit from it. That was the moment the plan crystallized. Not just to push back, not just to protect, but to take back everything and make sure none of them saw it coming. By the time I reached out to Jillian again, my heart wasn't pounding anymore. It wasn't rage. It wasn't panic. It was focus. I sat across from her in her office, neat, quiet, sun streaming in through half-closed blinds, and laid out the McTavish partnership post, the solar oven diagram, the screenshots of Emma's original sketches, photos, and Melissa's social media timeline. Jillian didn't even blink. "This is theft," she said plainly. "And if it's used in a business context, it's corporate theft. IP infringement. Possibly fraud." I nodded. "I don't want to sue them for millions. I just want it public. I want it undeniable." She leaned back. "Then we'll start with a cease and desist to McTavish. Get them on record as distributing stolen content. If they're smart, they'll panic and pull out." "And Ryan?" She smiled, thin and sharp. "Oh, he's going to learn what it feels like to be publicly embarrassed." Thoroughly. Over the next 2 weeks, things moved fast. Jillian drafted a beautifully brutal letter, one that outlined, in meticulous detail, the original creation date of Emma's project, the timestamped posts, the competition win, and the nearly identical rendering used in the McTavish promotional pitch. We didn't send it through email. We sent it as a formal legal package, couriered directly to McTavish's legal department and the CEO. Within 4 days, I got a call from a man named Stephen Day, director of operations at McTavish. "Mr. M, I'm calling to apologize." "Profusely," he said, voice tight with panic. "We were unaware the design came from a minor school project. Had we known, you didn't ask where the design came from? We trusted our partner's submission. Mr. Ryan M. represented it as his own prototype." My throat tightened. "He claimed to have invented it?" "Yes, sir. I'd like to assure you that as of this morning, we've frozen all rollout plans tied to that partnership, and we are internally reviewing all content and contracts connected to it." "Good," I said, "because if this goes to court, I'm bringing Emma with me. I'll let the press photograph her standing next to the model she built on our kitchen table with tinfoil and a shoebox." He exhaled hard. "There's no need for that. Please, Mr. M. Let us fix this." They didn't just retract the partnership. They published a formal apology. It went live the next day on their website and social channels. "We deeply regret the use of intellectual material that was not properly sourced. We have since discovered that a design submitted by a recent collaborator was in fact created by a young innovator, Emma M., as part of a school STEM fair. We commend her brilliance and have made a charitable donation to support her school's science program in her honor." They donated $25,000 to Emma's school. That morning, I showed her the post. She read it 3 times, then whispered, "They said my name." Lucas shouted, "You're famous now," from the hallway. Melissa cried. I didn't. I was too focused on what was still to come. Because while McTavish had done the right thing, Ryan? He doubled down. He posted a passive-aggressive tweet. "Jealousy is a disease. Real creators rise above the noise." Then he started spreading his version to the family. That we had manipulated a child's school project to tank his career. That we were bitter. That we were turning the kids into pawns. But what Ryan hadn't realized was that McTavish's internal investigation wasn't just about PR. It was legal. And 2 weeks later, he got hit with a formal letter from their lawyers demanding full disclosure of all his past submitted work, verification of originality, and immediate termination of the collaboration. His name was scrubbed from their site. The LinkedIn post disappeared. I heard through a mutual contact, one of Ryan's old college friends, that 3 other companies quietly paused deals with him after hearing what happened. No one wanted to be tied to a guy who stole from a 12-year-old and got exposed by a publicly traded partner. But the revenge didn't stop there. Melissa had a brilliant idea. She contacted Emma's school principal and pitched a story. A local girl's science project gets stolen, a corporate partner uses it for profit, and the company donates money to make it right. The principal went wide-eyed. "Would you be open to a media piece?" Melissa smiled. "We'd be thrilled." By the following week, a local news station was filming Emma in her classroom, standing next to her solar oven. She spoke shyly but clearly, explaining how she came up with the idea, how she tested it in the backyard, how it felt weird at first when someone else tried to claim it. The anchor ended the segment with a reminder that sometimes the brightest minds in innovation aren't in boardrooms. They're in our own classrooms. The clip went viral in our town. The school got flooded with congratulations. The PTA called it the best press they'd had in years. But the best part? My mom called. She didn't even try to deny what had happened. She just said, "You didn't have to humiliate the family." I laughed. "Oh, we're just getting started." I wasn't bluffing. Remember that promissory note from 2016? Jillian filed a claim in small claims court. It wasn't about the money. It was about the record. Dad ignored the notice. So we escalated. The hearing happened in May. He didn't show. Jillian and I presented the documents, the emails, the payment receipts. It was quiet, methodical, boring, and ironclad. We won. Judgment entered. $18,742.31 plus court fees and interest. I sent a copy to my parents with a note. Since financial agreements matter so much to you. It arrived the day after Ryan's story got picked up in a national STEM education roundup. One sentence buried halfway through read. The company retracted its partnership after learning the submitted prototype had been developed by a local middle school student in a documented competition. Ryan didn't show up to Memorial Day weekend at Katie's. Neither did our parents. We didn't care. Because we weren't just surviving anymore. We were thriving. Emma got a STEM scholarship to attend a summer program at the local university. Lucas made goalie for his rec league. Melissa's consulting work exploded. 3 local business owners had seen the news story and reached out. And me? I got promoted. My company offered me a leadership position in a new satellite office. More pay, more control, and best of all, a culture I could shape. At the first all-hands meeting, I ended the presentation with a slide that read, "Give credit. Always. Even when no one's watching." People applauded. Some didn't get it. But I did. So did Melissa. And so did Emma, who watched from the back of the room with a quiet smile. We never spoke to my parents again. Not after the court ruling. Not after the school donation. Not after the news segment that aired during dinner hour and left them scrambling to control the narrative in a town that had already made up its mind. Because in the end, they weren't just cut off. They were forgotten. And that, more than anything else, was the thing they couldn't stand. It wasn't the letter. It wasn't the lawsuit. It wasn't the donations, or the headlines, or the judgment. It was the silence. The way we stopped defending ourselves. The way we stopped showing up to absorb the damage. The way we just moved on. Without them. And as for Ryan, well, last I heard, he was taking time off to rebrand. But Emma? She's building a solar-powered compost bin for the school garden. And this time, she's filing for a patent. With my lawyer. Because some names, you don't get to erase. Some sparks, you can't steal. And some families, they don't break. They rebuild. Stronger, louder, brighter. Without the ones who always wanted to dim the light.